When my sister called me a failed mother in front of our entire family, she had no idea she was talking to someone who could save her from losing everything. My name is Elena Rodriguez. I'm 42 years old, and for the past 8 years, my own sister has been ashamed to tell anyone that I work 3 jobs to support my children. I was running 20 minutes late to Jennifer's annual family barbecue, still wearing my morning cleaning uniform because I'd barely had time to grab the store-bought cheesecake from my car before rushing to her house. The afternoon sun was blazing as I walked through her perfectly manicured backyard, where about 15 family members had already gathered around the pool, laughing and sharing appetizers that probably cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Jennifer spotted me immediately. At 38, my sister had that polished stay-at-home mom look down to an art form, perfect blonde highlights, yoga-toned arms, and a sundress that screamed expensive casual. She was standing near the grill with our cousin Rebecca and her husband Alex, who was flipping burgers while checking his phone every few seconds. "Well, look who finally showed up," Jennifer announced loud enough for everyone to hear. "Did you at least shower off the cleaning chemicals before coming over?" The conversations around the pool area went quiet. I felt the familiar heat of embarrassment creep up my neck as I forced a smile. "Sorry I'm late. Mrs. Patterson had an emergency cleaning request, and I couldn't say no to the extra money." Jennifer rolled her eyes dramatically. "Of course she did. Elena, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You're at everyone's beck and call except your own family's." I excused myself to change in her guest bathroom, where I'd stashed a clean blouse and jeans in my car. As I was washing my hands, I could hear Jennifer's voice carrying through the thin walls. "I just don't understand how she can call herself a mother when she's never home. Those poor kids are basically raising themselves while she's off scrubbing toilets and whatever else she does." My heart clenched. My son Jake, who's 16, and my daughter Sophie, 14, were somewhere in that backyard hearing this. I took a deep breath, straightened my shoulders, and walked back outside. "Mom!" Sophie ran up to me, her dark hair bouncing in its ponytail. I helped Aunt Jennifer set up the dessert table. "She has like 6 different kinds of pie." "That's wonderful, sweetheart," I said, kissing the top of her head. Jake was sitting at a picnic table with his older cousin, both of them absorbed in their phones. He glanced up and gave me a small wave. Jennifer appeared at my elbow with a glass of lemonade. "Elena, I hope you don't mind that I picked up some extra school supplies for Jake and Sophie. I was at Target anyway, and I know how tight things must be for you." She said it with that sweet, concerned tone that made it sound like charity rather than an insult. But everyone within earshot now knew that I couldn't afford basic school supplies for my own children. Rebecca, our cousin, gave me one of those pitying smiles that made my stomach turn. "That's very kind of you, Jennifer. But the kids already have everything they need for school," I replied quietly. "Oh, I'm sure they do," Jennifer said with a laugh. "But you know, a little extra never hurts. Especially when mom's working such demanding jobs." Alex, Jennifer's husband, was still glued to his phone. He looked stressed, constantly running his hand through his sandy brown hair. When he noticed me watching, he quickly shoved the phone in his pocket and gave me a tight smile. "Hey Elena, how's the work situation going?" Before I could answer, Jennifer jumped in. "Alex, Elena's the hardest working person I know. She cleans houses in the morning, does security at night, and helps cater events on weekends. She's like the Energizer Bunny of manual labor." The way she said it, like my work ethic was somehow admirable but ultimately pointless, made me want to disappear. Alex nodded politely, but I could see in his eyes that he'd categorized me as the poor sister who'd never quite figured life out. Wow. That's a lot," he said. "Must be exhausting." "Elena's exhausted." "All right," came a voice from behind me. Jennifer's mother-in-law, Patricia, had joined our little circle. But in my day, mothers put their children first. There's something to be said for being present during these formative years. Patricia was one of those women who'd never worked outside the home, and wore it like a badge of honor. She looked at me like I was a cautionary tale. A woman who'd somehow missed the memo about proper motherhood. "Everyone has their own way of showing love," I said, keeping my voice level. "I do what I need to do to provide for my children." "Oh, Elena. Patricia sighed. Providing isn't just about money, dear. It's about being there. Quality time, not quantity paychecks. Sophie, who'd been helping herself to chips nearby, looked up at me with confusion in her eyes. Mom, are we poor? The question hit like a punch to the gut. Jennifer immediately knelt down to Sophie's level. Oh, sweetie. Poor is such an ugly word. Your mom just works really hard to make ends meet. That's different. But Sophie wasn't stupid. At 14, she understood the difference between diplomatic language and reality. I saw the moment of realization cross her face, followed quickly by embarrassment. My daughter was embarrassed by our financial situation. And worse, it was happening in front of our entire extended family. Sophie, come help me get more ice from the garage, I said, offering her my hand. As we walked away from the group, I caught Jake's eye from across the yard. He was pretending not to listen, but I could tell by the tense set of his shoulders that he'd heard every word. My 16-year-old son was learning to be ashamed of his mother's work, and that hurt more than any insult Jennifer could throw at me. In the garage, Sophie leaned against Jennifer's pristine car and looked up at me with serious eyes. Mom, why does Aunt Jennifer talk to you like that? I crouched down to her level, choosing my words carefully. Sometimes people don't understand the choices other people have to make. Aunt Jennifer's been very lucky in her life, and that can make it hard to see things from different perspectives. But you work super hard, Sophie said fiercely. You're always working. And you still help me with homework and come to my soccer games and make us dinner every night. How does that make you a bad mom? I pulled her into a hug, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. It doesn't, sweetheart, and I want you to remember that no matter what anyone says, okay? But as we walked back to the party with bags of ice, I couldn't shake the feeling that my own children were starting to question whether their mother was enough. Whether I was enough. The afternoon continued with more subtle digs and condescending comments. When the conversation turned to summer vacation plans, Jennifer made sure everyone knew that Jake and Sophie would be staying home while other kids went to camps and beach houses. When Rebecca mentioned her daughter's college preparation, Jennifer sympathetically noted that college was such an expensive investment with a meaningful look in my direction. By the time we left that evening, I felt hollowed out. Jake had barely spoken to me during the car ride home, and Sophie kept asking questions about why we couldn't afford the things our cousins had. Mom, Jake finally said, as we pulled into our apartment complex, why can't you just get one normal job, like something that doesn't make people think we're... He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. The word hung in the air between us. Poor, charity cases. The family members everyone pitied but no one really respected. That night, after the kids were asleep, I sat at my kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at the financial documents I'd been reviewing for my weekend catering client. Numbers had always made sense to me, even when nothing else in my life did. Profit margins, cash flow projections, debt-to-income ratios, these concepts felt as natural as breathing. But none of that mattered to my family. All they saw was a woman who cleaned toilets and worked security shifts, a mother who couldn't provide the lifestyle they thought children deserved. They had no idea that every choice I'd made, every sacrifice, every exhausting day had been carefully calculated to give Jake and Sophie the stability and opportunities I'd never had growing up. They saw failure where I saw strategy. They saw desperation where I saw determination. And tomorrow I'd wake up at 5 a.m. to start another day of being underestimated by the people who were supposed to love me most. The barbecue was just the beginning. Over the following weeks, Jennifer's comments about my parenting became regular family entertainment. I'm worried about Elena. I overheard her telling our cousin Rebecca at our nephew's birthday party. She thinks working 3 jobs makes her some kind of hero. But those poor kids are basically raising themselves. My face burned as I stood in the hallway with cake plates. Jennifer had twisted Jake helping with dinner into evidence of my neglect. Maybe she could find something with better hours? Rebecca suggested. That's what I keep telling her. But Elena's always been proud. She'd rather work herself to death than admit she's in over her head. The judgment spread everywhere. At Jake's school conference, his counselor mentioned that Jennifer had called about scholarship opportunities. Your sister is very concerned about college funding, she said kindly. Now Jake's school thought we were charity cases. That night, Jake struggled with economics homework. Mom, what's a debt-to-equity ratio? I explained the concept easily, walking him through the calculation. When a company has too much debt compared to assets, it becomes risky for investors. Jake looked surprised. How do you know that? You learn a lot when you're paying attention, I said. But I could see his confusion. It didn't fit everyone's narrative about who I was supposed to be. The dismissal extended to work. Mrs. Patterson started leaving detailed cleaning notes, as if I hadn't been perfect for 3 years. Please remember to dust the baseboards. I know it's easy to miss details when you're rushing. During security shifts downtown, I walked past struggling businesses. Empty storefronts, for lease signs, companies bleeding money. I could see the patterns, the classic mistakes that led to cash flow problems. Alex's development company had moved to a smaller office on the 3rd floor. Through windows, I saw him working late, surrounded by papers, looking haggard. His assistant's desk had unpaid invoices and past due notices. I recognized the signs from my previous life. Over-leveraged companies making spectacular mistakes. But I was just the minimum wage security guard. At home, the kids asked harder questions. Sophie wanted to know about summer camps. Jake asked about our unreliable car. Aunt Jennifer said, maybe you could get a job at her friend's real estate office. Sophie said during homework time. Wouldn't that pay better than cleaning? Jennifer was planting seeds with my own children, making them question my capabilities. The final straw came at family dinner. Jennifer arrived with shopping bags full of school clothes for Jake and Sophie. Jennifer, that's unnecessary, I said firmly. The kids have everything they need. Don't be prideful, Elena. Patricia chimed in. There's no shame in accepting help when you're overwhelmed. Overwhelmed. That word followed me everywhere now. Elena's struggling. Elena's in over her head. Elena's a failed mother. Jake tried on a new jacket, his face lighting up. Thanks, Aunt Jennifer. This is really cool. Jennifer beamed. Everyone deserves nice things. The implication was clear. I wasn't giving my children what they deserved. That night, I sat in my car staring up at our apartment windows. My children were trying on new clothes, probably wondering why their mother couldn't provide the same things. They were starting to see me the way everyone else did. Someone who meant well but wasn't quite enough. Someone who worked hard but wasn't smart enough to work effectively. Tomorrow meant another 18-hour day of being underestimated by people who had no idea what I was actually capable of. The constant judgment was destroying my family from within. Jake started making comments about wanting to live with his dad in the nicer neighborhood. Sophie told friends her mom was between jobs, instead of explaining my actual work. Family invitations became rare. When they came, Jennifer would announce, "Don't worry about bringing anything fancy, Elena. We know money's tight." The breaking point came when Jake's guidance counselor called about college applications. "Your sister mentioned you might need help with application fees." Jennifer was discussing my finances with my son's school behind my back. Meanwhile, my work gave me front-row seats to real financial disaster. During security rounds, I saw Alex's development company falling apart. Expensive furniture, but unpaid invoices everywhere. His assistant constantly telling creditors payment next week. The documents I glimpsed while cleaning showed classic over-leveraging. 6 different developments. Not enough liquid capital. Properties losing tenants while he carried construction loans. At weekend catering jobs, restaurant owners discussed the commercial real estate collapse. Alex's investments were hemorrhaging money, but nobody asked the security guard for business advice. At home, my kids pulled away emotionally. Jake avoided having me pick him up from school. Sophie stopped inviting friends over, embarrassed by our apartment. "Can we afford debate team?" Sophie asked one evening. "It's $50, but I know you're always worried about money." My heart broke. Jennifer's commentary had convinced my daughter we lived paycheck to paycheck. "Of course you can join," I said. "We always have money for education." Sophie looked surprised. "Really?" Aunt Jennifer said. "Extracurriculars were probably too expensive." Jennifer was now undermining my parenting decisions directly with my children. Jake came home upset about career day. Why can't you just tell people you're a business consultant? Everyone else's parents have normal jobs. I had to say my mom is a janitor. My 16-year-old son was ashamed of me. Jennifer's campaign had worked. During security rounds, I watched Alex working until 2 a.m., frantically making calls. His bank statements showed negative cash flow for 3 months. Commercial lending documents revealed he owed $2.3 million with only $340,000 liquid assets. His largest investor was threatening to pull funding within 30 days. At family dinner, Alex looked terrible. Dark circles, constantly checking his phone. Barely eating. Jennifer made excuses about his amazing new project, completely oblivious to the crisis. Her spending hadn't decreased. New patio furniture, expensive vacation plans, while her husband's company spiraled toward bankruptcy. Jennifer tells me you're thinking about school, Patricia said during dessert. It's never too late to improve your situation. Another fictional narrative Jennifer created about my life. I'm perfectly happy with my current situation, I said. There's no shame in wanting more, Jennifer sighed. Think about Jake and Sophie's futures. Don't you want to give them opportunities? That night, I reviewed financial projections for my catering client's restaurant expansion. The numbers didn't work. Too much debt. Insufficient capital reserves. I wrote detailed notes about cash flow management and debt restructuring. The restaurant owner would listen because he was paying for my advice. But my family saw me as too incompetent to have opinions about anything important. 3 blocks away, Jennifer planned her next charitable gesture while her husband's company collapsed. She had no idea the sister she pitied was the one person who could save them all. The call came on a Tuesday morning while I was cleaning Mrs. Patterson's office. Jennifer's voice was hysterical, barely coherent through her sobs. Elena, you need to come over right now. Everything's falling apart. Alex's company. We're going to lose everything. The house, the cars, everything. I dropped my cleaning supplies and drove straight to her house. I found Jennifer collapsed on her kitchen floor, surrounded by financial documents and legal notices. Alex sat at the table with his head in his hands, looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight. The investors pulled out, Alex said without looking up. All of them were 3 months behind on the mortgage. And the bank's starting foreclosure proceedings. I've been using credit cards to keep us afloat, but we're maxed out everywhere. Jennifer looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. Elena, I know we haven't. I know I've been. She couldn't finish the sentence. Let me see the paperwork, I said quietly. Alex gestured helplessly at the scattered documents. What's the point? It's over. 6 years of building this company and I've destroyed everything. I sat down and started organizing the papers. Bank statements, loan documents, investor agreements, property assessments. As I read through them, I could see the full scope of the disaster, but also something else. Something Alex couldn't see, because he was too panicked to think clearly. Alex, when did you last speak to your creditors directly? I asked. I can't, he said. They're all threatening lawsuits. My lawyer said not to communicate without him present. And how much are you paying this lawyer? $300 an hour. I did quick calculations in my head. So you're spending money you don't have on a lawyer who's telling you not to talk to the people you owe money to. That's not a strategy. That's surrender. Jennifer stared at me. Elena, what are you talking about? I took a deep breath. I worked at Henderson and Associates for 12 years before my divorce. I was a senior financial analyst specializing in corporate restructuring and debt management. I have an MBA from State University. The silence in the room was deafening. I've restructured companies with debt loads 3 times worse than yours. I continued. The reason I work multiple jobs isn't because I can't get anything better. It's because I need flexible hours to be available for my children's school events and activities. Every choice I've made has been strategic. Alex finally looked up. You're serious? Dead serious. Alex, you're not bankrupt. You're illiquid. There's a massive difference. And if you let me, I can show you how to fix this. I spread the documents across the table, pointing to specific line items. Look, your core properties are still profitable. The problem isn't your business model, it's your debt structure and cash flow timing. You expanded too quickly without maintaining adequate reserves. But the underlying assets are sound. Jennifer was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. Elena, how do you know all this? Because this is what I did for living for over a decade. I saved companies from bankruptcy by restructuring their debt and optimizing their operational efficiency. I worked through the night, creating a comprehensive restructuring plan. By morning, I had identified which properties to divest immediately, which creditors to prioritize, and how to negotiate payment plans that would prevent foreclosure. Here's what we're going to do, I explained to Alex and Jennifer over coffee. First, we sell the 2 smallest properties immediately. They're breaking even, so they're not contributing to cash flow anyway. That gives us $180,000 to work with. But those properties were supposed to appreciate, Alex protested. Alex, you're drowning. You don't have time to wait for appreciation. We use that money to bring the mortgage current and create a payment plan with your 3 largest creditors. I showed him my analysis. Your biggest mistake was treating all debt equally. Secured debt gets priority always. Credit cards are unsecured, so they have the least leverage. We negotiate those last. Jennifer watched in amazement as I walked Alex through cash flow projections, debt restructuring timelines, and operational adjustments that would make his remaining properties profitable within 6 months. I can call my former colleagues at Henderson, I said. They have relationships with commercial lenders who specialize in distressed asset recovery. If we present this plan properly, we can probably negotiate forbearance agreements that give you breathing room. Alex was frantically taking notes. Elena, this is exactly what my lawyer should have been doing. How did you see solutions he missed? Because your lawyer thinks like a lawyer. I think like a business analyst. His job is to protect you from liability. My job is to fix the underlying problems. By the end of the week, I had negotiated payment plans with 5 major creditors, arranged forbearance on the mortgage, and identified operational changes that would improve cash flow by $12,000 monthly. Jennifer and Alex's marriage was saved. Their house was saved. Alex's company was restructured but viable. And my family finally understood who I really was. 3 weeks after saving Alex's company, Jennifer called a family meeting. She'd invited everyone who'd witnessed my humiliation at the barbecue, plus Jake and Sophie. I need to tell you all something about Elena, Jennifer began, her voice shaking. We've been wrong. Completely, horribly wrong. She looked directly at me. Elena didn't take those jobs because she couldn't do better. She has an MBA and 12 years of corporate experience. She chose flexible work so she could be present for her children. Every decision was strategic, not desperate. Patricia, Jennifer's mother-in-law, looked stunned. Elena, you mean when I was lecturing you about being present for your children, you'd already sacrificed a high-paying career to do exactly that? Elena saved our family, Alex said quietly. My company was days from bankruptcy. My lawyer wanted $50,000 to file Chapter 11. Elena restructured everything in 1 week and saved our house, our marriage, everything. Jake was staring at me with new eyes. Mom, you're like a secret superhero. Sophie grabbed my hand. Why didn't you tell us? Because what I did for work wasn't as important as being your mother, I said. I wanted you to know that no honest work is shameful, and that sometimes we make sacrifices for the people we love. Jennifer broke down completely. Elena, I am so sorry. I was so wrong about everything. You weren't struggling. You were strategizing. You weren't failing your children. You were showing them what real strength looks like. She turned to Jake and Sophie. Your mother turned down 6-figure job offers to be available for your school events. She could have been making $200,000 a year, but she chose to clean houses so she could attend your soccer games and help with homework. Rebecca, our cousin, spoke up. Elena, I owe you an apology too. We all do. We saw your work uniforms and assumed you lacked ambition, when really you were the most ambitious person in this room. You were building something bigger than a career. You were building a family. Patricia stood up slowly. Elena, dear. I said some terrible things about your mothering. You're not just a good mother. You're an extraordinary one. You sacrificed your professional identity so your children would never doubt they came first. The change in my family was immediate and profound. Jake started telling friends his mom was a business consultant who also worked other jobs by choice. Sophie asked me to help her with career planning, wanting to understand how strategic thinking worked. Mom, Jake said one evening, I'm sorry I was embarrassed. I didn't understand that you were choosing us over money every single day. I'm proud of you, Sophie added. You saved Uncle Alex's whole family and you've been taking care of everyone this whole time. Alex offered me a consulting position with his restructured company. Elena, I want you to be our CFO. Name your salary. I appreciate the offer, I said. But I'm launching my own consulting practice. I've already got 3 clients from my cleaning and catering work. Small business owners who need exactly the kind of help I can provide. Within 2 months, Rodriguez Financial Consulting was booming. My first clients were the restaurant owner I'd been catering for, Mrs. Patterson's struggling marketing firm, and 2 other small businesses I'd met through my various jobs. My cleaning clients became my consulting clients. The security job had given me insight into dozens of businesses. The catering work had connected me with restaurant owners and event planners who needed financial guidance. Every job I'd taken to provide flexibility for my children had also been building a network and expertise base for this moment. Jennifer and I developed a real relationship for the first time in years. Elena, I was jealous, she admitted. You were doing everything. Working, parenting, managing finances, and making it look effortless. I felt inadequate, so I criticized you instead of admiring you. You weren't wrong to worry about my children, I said, but you were wrong to assume I wasn't thinking 3 steps ahead of every decision. 6 months later, at Jake's graduation, I sat in the front row wearing a business suit I'd bought with my consulting income. My son was headed to college with a full academic scholarship, and Sophie was thriving in debate team, confident in her mother's ability to provide whatever she needed. Jennifer leaned over during the ceremony. Elena, I need to ask you something. When you were working those 3 jobs and I was criticizing you, did you know this day would come? I smiled, watching Jake cross the stage. Jennifer, I've been planning this day since he was 8 years old. Every sacrifice, every cleaning shift, every late-night security round. It was all building toward giving my children opportunities I never had. But how did you know it would work? Because I trusted that competence and character always win in the end. I knew that if I stayed true to my values and kept developing my skills, eventually the right moment would come to show who I really was. That night, I updated my LinkedIn profile for the first time in 8 years. Elena Rodriguez, MBA, founder of Rodriguez Financial Consulting, specializing in small business restructuring and debt management. Within a week, I had 5 new client inquiries. My sister had called me a failed mother for working 3 jobs. She had no idea she was talking to someone who'd been succeeding at the most complex job of all, raising confident, capable children, while building expertise that would eventually save her family from losing everything. Every early morning, every late night, every moment of being underestimated had prepared me for the day when my hidden worth would become undeniable. And when that day came, I was ready. So, that's my story. I'd love to hear what you think. Have you ever had family members underestimate your abilities because of the work you chose to do? Let me know in the comments and subscribe if you want to hear more stories like mine.